He was the most honest man in professional basketball. He said what nobody else would say, admitted what nobody else would admit, and lived the way nobody else dared to live. But there was one truth Charles Barkley kept dodging for years, buried under laughter and bravado, and that famous grin. $30 million. Gone. Not stolen. Not lost in bad investments. Not swindled by a crooked agent. Handed over voluntarily, one bet at a time, to the city that never sleeps and never forgets what you owe. A round mound of rebounds. To understand how a man loses $30 million at a card table and then sits down on national television and laughs about it, you have to go back to where he started. Back before the NBA. Back before the endorsements and the commentary desk and the catchphrases. Back to Leeds, Alabama, a small town outside Birmingham, where a heavy-set kid named Charles Wade Barkley grew up poor, angry, and absolutely convinced that the world owed him nothing, and he was going to take everything anyway. Leeds in the 1960s and the 1970s was not a place that produced professional athletes. It was a place that produced hard workers who died tired. Charles's mother, Charcy, worked multiple jobs to keep the family going. His father left when Charles was a toddler and never really came back. His grandmother, Johnny May, was the center of his world, the woman who told him he was special when nothing around him confirmed that story. What Charles had was size, aggression, and a competitive hunger that bordered on pathological. He was listed at 6'6" for his entire NBA career. Most people who stood next to him said 6'4", maybe. He did not care. He played power forward against men 4 and 5 inches taller and beat them with sheer force of will, with elbows and shoulders, and a refusal to accept that the rules applied to him the way they applied to everyone else. He got to Auburn University on a basketball scholarship and shocked everyone, including himself. Then, in 1984, the Philadelphia 76ers drafted him 5th overall. And for the next 16 years, Charles Barkley rewrote what a power forward could be. 11 All-Star appearances, the MVP in 1992 to 1993, an Olympic gold medal in Barcelona with the Dream Team, a career that put him in the Hall of Fame without a single championship, which tells you something about the man. He was always the most compelling person in any room, just not always the winner. But here is the thing about Charles Barkley that made him different from every other star of his era. He could not stop telling the truth. When other athletes gave press conference answers, Charles gave press conference confessions. When other players dodged controversy, Charles walked straight into it, poured gasoline on it, and then acted surprised at the fire. The 1993 Nike commercial in which he looked into the camera and said, "I am not a role model," did more than make headlines. It started a national conversation about what we ask of athletes and what athletes owe us back. That honesty was not a performance. It was a compulsion. Charles Barkley could not help being exactly who he was in every situation. On the court, that meant elbows and technicals, and one of the most physical games anyone had ever seen from a man his size. Off the court, it meant a personality that craved action the way some men crave oxygen. And in Las Vegas, that personality found the perfect mirror. Because Las Vegas is not built for quiet people. It is not built for the cautious, the patient, the satisfied. It is built for men like Charles Barkley. Men with money, men with ego, men who need to feel the electricity of something real in a world that has become too comfortable and too controlled. The first time Charles sat down at a high-stakes table, the city recognized him immediately. Not as a basketball player, as a customer. Vegas gets its hooks in. Let me tell you how casinos actually work with celebrity gamblers, because most people have no idea. They think the casino is just thrilled to have a famous face on the floor. Free rooms, free dinners, a nice picture for the press. That is not what is happening. What is happening is a seduction so carefully engineered, it makes the mob's old skimming operations look like amateur hour. Every major casino on the Las Vegas Strip employs a team of casino hosts. These are not concierge staff. These are relationship managers, psychologists in expensive suits, whose entire job is to identify high-value gamblers, cultivate those relationships over years, and ensure that when those gamblers feel the urge to play, they pick up the phone and call one specific person at one specific casino. The hosts know your game. They know your limits. They know your weaknesses. They know when you are up and flush and feeling generous. And they know when you are down and desperate and need one more session to get it back. Charles Barkley had hosts at the Mirage, at Caesar's Palace, at the Wynn, after Steve Wynn opened it in 2005, and immediately began courting every significant gambler in America. These men treated Charles like royalty because Charles was royalty, the kind that spent money. Private suites that would make a foreign dignitary blush. Transportation arranged. Tables held. Every convenience known to man provided, gratis, in exchange for the simple understanding that when Charles Barkley sat down to play, he would be playing at their casino and not the one across the street. Now, here is where the trap gets elegant. Because Charles was not paying cash, not at the levels he was playing. In Nevada, casinos extend what are called markers. A marker is essentially a line of credit. You sign a document, the casino advances you chips, and you have a set period of time, usually 30 days, to pay it back. It functions like a check, and in Nevada, that comparison is not metaphorical. An unpaid casino marker in the state of Nevada is prosecuted under the same bad check statute as a bounce check at a grocery store. The casino is not sending a leg breaker to your door. They are sending a district attorney. But that legal machinery is not what matters in the beginning. What matters in the beginning is how easy it is. You walk up to the cage, you sign your name, and $60,000 in chips appears in your hands like magic. No wire transfer, no waiting, no friction. Just chips, and the table, and the game. And for a man with Charles Barkley's income, $60,000 felt like $60. So the number grew, the markers grew, and the relationship between Charles Barkley and the casinos of Las Vegas grew into something that would define the second half of his public life. His game was baccarat. Understand this. Baccarat is not poker, where skill and psychology give the dedicated player a fighting chance. Baccarat is a pure coin flip dressed in a tuxedo. You bet on the player or the banker. The cards come out. The closest hand to 9 wins. The house edge is small, barely over 1% on the banker bet, but small edges applied to enormous wagers, compounded over hundreds of hours of play, produce one inevitable result. The house wins, always. The math does not care about momentum or hot streaks or destiny. It just grinds relentlessly until the money moves from your side of the table to theirs. Charles knew this. He has said on multiple occasions that he understood he was going to lose. That is not the point, he told one interviewer. The point is the action, the adrenaline of a $250,000 hand, the feeling, however brief, of being the most powerful person in that room. For a man who had channeled his competitive fury into basketball for 16 years and then suddenly retired and found himself sitting in a television studio talking about other people's games, the casino offered something the broadcast booth could not. Real stakes, real consequences, real feeling. And the losses started piling up. $30 million. Let me ask you to hold the $30 million in your mind for a moment. Not as a punchline, not as a celebrity footnote, not as a late-night talk show bit that gets a big laugh and then disappears. Think of it as a number with actual weight behind it, a number that means something when you set it down on a table and look at it honestly. $30 million. Say it slowly. Charles Barkley grew up in Leeds, Alabama, where his mother worked multiple jobs, and his grandmother raised him in a house where luxury was not a concept that applied to their lives. Not even close. Leeds was not a place of abundance. It was a place of work and church and making do and hoping the next generation climbed a little higher than the last one. The people of Leeds, most of them, will never see $30 million accumulated across every paycheck, every overtime shift, every birthday and Christmas, and every retirement account and inheritance across every year of every working life they will ever live. That number exists in a different atmosphere entirely. One most people never breathe. One most people never even see from a distance. And yet, Charles Barkley lost it. Not in a market crash, not in a bad business deal, not because a crooked advisor emptied his accounts while he was not looking. He lost it at a card table, voluntarily, repeatedly, over 2 decades, with full knowledge of what was happening and a grin that said he had made his peace with it. Every man and woman who ever cheered for him at the Spectrum in Philadelphia, who bought his jersey at a mall store on a Saturday afternoon, who watched him on television and laughed at his jokes and loved him fiercely for saying out loud the things everyone else was too careful and too polished and too managed to say, they all contributed something to the economy that built the 30 million. Indirectly, yes, nobody is assigning blame here. The fans did not put those chips on the baccarat felt, but not invisibly either. There is a line, however crooked and however long, between the kid in the upper deck wearing number 34 and the chips sliding across the green felt in a private room at Caesar's Palace at 2 in the morning. Charles Barkley was the man standing in the middle of that line for 20 years. The fans who loved him mattered to that story. His daughter Christiana grew up inside this story, not watching it from the outside the way the rest of us did, reading about it in newspapers or catching the admission on a television clip, but living inside it, in the house, at the dinner table, in the silence that exists between television appearances, between the laughs, between the public confessions that get applause and the private reality that gets nothing but time. She has spoken about admiring her father's honesty, his willingness to be imperfect in public, to stand in front of cameras and admit things other men would spend fortunes burying. That honesty is real. It is rare. It deserves genuine respect. But there is a version of that honesty that a child processes privately, without cameras, without an audience to absorb the impact. In the space between what gets said on television and what gets felt at home in the quiet. What does it mean to be the daughter of a man who tells the world, almost casually, that he lost $30 million gambling? What does it mean to understand that the money was there, and then it was not, and then it was again because the endorsement checks kept coming and the broadcasting contracts kept coming, and then some of that was gone too? That cycle does not resolve cleanly and become a finished story. It just repeats, season after season, casino after casino, marker after marker. Barkley has said more than once that he can afford it, that the losses, staggering as they sound when the number is spoken out loud, never genuinely threatened his family's security. They never put them at risk. They never cost them anything that truly mattered. And that may be the complete truth. He may be right, but it may also be the most heartbreaking thing he has ever said. Charles Barkley has said some things in his life that hit hard. Because that particular statement, "I can afford it," exposes the trap at its most elegant and its most ruthless. The casino never wanted to break Charles Barkley. Breaking him ends the relationship. A broken man stops coming back. A broken man hires lawyers and gives interviews about predatory lending and becomes a liability instead of an asset. The casino wanted him solvent enough to return, comfortable enough to absorb the losses, and still feel like a winner walking through those doors. Wealthy enough to keep losing without the losing ever forcing a real reckoning. The perfect customer is not the man who loses everything once and never comes back. The perfect customer is the man who can afford to lose forever. Charles Barkley, by his own accounting, is the perfect customer. Now let me tell you about the man who collected, because this is where the story turns from sports biography into something darker and more instructive. The $30 million did not disappear quietly. There were debts that did not get paid on time. There were markers that came due and were not met. And in the state of Nevada, that is not a civil matter. That is a criminal one. The specific debt that went public involved Caesar's Palace. The amount was disputed, the details sealed behind attorneys and settlements, but the mechanism was clear. Caesars had extended Barkley credit. Barkley had signed markers. The markers had come due. And when the accounting did not balance, Caesars did not send a tough guy in a tracksuit to knock on his door. They activated something more powerful than that. They activated the state. Nevada's marker law is unique in American jurisprudence. In 49 other states, if you borrow money from a casino and don't pay it back, you have a civil debt. The casino can sue you, but in Nevada, an unpaid casino marker is a felony, not a civil matter, a criminal matter, prosecuted by the Clark County District Attorney's Office, the same office that prosecutes murder and robbery and assault. The casino files a complaint. The DA investigates. And suddenly, a man who lost money playing cards is staring at the possibility of arrest, prosecution, and prison time. This was not theoretical for Charles Barkley. The machinery was engaged. Lawyers were involved. Phone calls were made at levels that never make the news. And the resolution, when it came quietly, in the form of a settlement whose terms were never disclosed to the public. What is known is that Barkley paid what it cost him beyond money, how it felt to have the full weight of Nevada's legal system aimed at him over a gambling debt he has never fully described. But understand what this tells you about how the casino industry actually operates. The collector in this story is not a mob enforcer cracking knuckles in a parking garage. That era ended when the corporations moved in and the gaming commissions cleaned up the licenses. The collector is far more effective than that. The collector is the district attorney. The collector is the criminal court. The collector is the legal system of the state of Nevada, which has decided that its casino industry is important enough to extend the full force of criminal prosecution to debt collection. Tony Cornero died at a craps table chasing a dream. Frank Rosenthal ran from a car bomb in the parking lot of a restaurant. The Binion family tore itself apart in courtrooms and emergency rooms. But Charles Barkley faced something the old Vegas never had. Not the mob, not the FBI, the county DA's office. And it is somehow more chilling because it is so completely, thoroughly legitimate. The casino credit executives who managed accounts like Barkley's were not villains. They were professionals doing a job with full legal backing. They extended credit that they knew mathematically and statistically, would produce losses. They cultivated a relationship designed to ensure maximum return. And when the bill came due and the payment was late, they had the full apparatus of Nevada criminal law standing behind them with its hand out. That is the man who collected. Not one man, a system, the reckoning. 2006 was the year it all came into the open. Charles Barkley was by then a fixture on TNT's Inside the NBA alongside Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, and Shaquille O'Neal, one of the most successful sports television programs ever made, precisely because of Barkley's total inability to say anything other than exactly what he thought. He had turned his personality into a franchise, and part of that franchise, it turned out, was his gambling. He brought it up himself. That is the Charles Barkley way. Do not wait for someone to expose you. Expose yourself loudly before the cameras, and then dare the world to make it worse than you just made it. He admitted the losses on air. He told interviewers. He wrote about it. He turned the $30 million into a talking point the way he had turned everything uncomfortable in his life into a talking point. If I say it first, you can't hurt me with it. That has always been his armor. But what the cameras did not show was what happened at home. His wife Maureen, whom he married in 1989, had built a life with a man who could not stop. She has spoken rarely and carefully about the gambling, which itself says something. When the loudest man in America has a wife who speaks carefully, you understand that some rooms in that house are quieter than the television studio. What Maureen knew when she knew it, what it cost their marriage in ways that $30 million cannot capture, lives in that careful silence. In 2006, Barkley checked himself into a program to address gambling addiction. This was not a public announcement. This was not a press conference. This was a man walking through a door that his ego must have made almost impossibly heavy to push open. Because Charles Barkley has spent his entire adult life in complete control of his own narrative, addiction is the disease that tells you the narrative is still yours when it stopped being yours a long time ago. The program helped. And then he went back to Vegas. Not immediately, not recklessly, but eventually, yes. Because that is what addiction actually looks like in a man who has resources and intelligence and a support system and still cannot fully stop. The difference between managing and curing is a distance that some people never fully cross. Charles Barkley has been honest about that too. He has reduced the bets. He has set limits. He has said he gambles differently now, but differently is not the same as never, and Las Vegas has a long memory and a patient heart. What it cost beyond money. Let me ask you to hold $30 million in your mind for a moment. Not as a punchline, not as a celebrity footnote, as a number with actual weight behind it. Say it slowly. Charles Barkley grew up in Leeds, Alabama, where his mother worked multiple jobs, and his grandmother raised him in a house where luxury was not a concept that applied to their lives. Not even close. The people of Leeds, most of them, will never see $30 million accumulated across every paycheck, every overtime shift, every year of every working life they will ever live. That number exists in a different atmosphere entirely, one most people never breathe. And yet, Charles Barkley lost that money. Not in a market crash. Not in a bad business deal. At a card table, voluntarily, repeatedly, over 2 decades. Every man and woman who ever cheered for him at the Spectrum in Philadelphia, who bought his jersey at a mall on a Saturday, who watched him on television and laughed at his jokes and loved him for saying out loud the things everyone else was too careful to say, they all contributed something to the economy that built the $30 million. Indirectly, yes, nobody is assigning blame, but not invisibly either. There is a line, however crooked, between the fan in the upper deck and the chips sliding across the baccarat felt. Charles Barkley was the man in the middle of that line. His daughter Christiana grew up inside this story, not watching it from the outside the way the rest of us did, but living inside it, in the house, at the dinner table, in the silence between the television appearances. She has spoken about admiring her father's honesty, his willingness to be imperfect in public, to stand in front of cameras and admit things other men would bury. That honesty is real, and it is rare, and it deserves respect. But there is a version of that honesty a child processes privately, without cameras, in the space between what gets said on television and what gets felt at home. What does it mean to be the daughter of a man who tells the world, casually, that he lost $30 million gambling? What does it mean to understand that the money was there, and then it was not? And then it was again because the checks kept coming, and then some of that was gone too? That cycle does not resolve cleanly. It just repeats. Barkley has said more than once that he can afford it, that the losses, staggering as they sound, never threatened his family's security. And that may be the truth, but it may also be the most revealing thing he has ever said, because it exposes the trap at its most elegant. The casino never wanted to break Charles Barkley. Breaking him ends the relationship. The casino wanted him solvent enough to return, comfortable enough to keep losing. The perfect customer is not the man who loses everything once and never comes back. The perfect customer is the man who can afford to lose forever. Charles Barkley, by his own accounting, is the perfect customer. The lesson Vegas never teaches. Here is what Vegas learned from Charles Barkley and applied to every celebrity who came after him. The celebrity gambler is not just a customer. The celebrity gambler is a marketing tool. When word spreads that Charles Barkley plays baccarat at Caesar's Palace, it does not deter ordinary gamblers. It encourages them. If Charles Barkley, who is smart and wealthy and famous and has every reason to walk away, cannot walk away, then the ordinary man sitting down at a $25 blackjack table is not weak for staying. He is in good company. The celebrity's losses normalize everyone else's losses. They make the casino feel like a place where people like us, real people, significant people, choose to spend their money and their time. The casinos understood this before Charles Barkley was born. The Stardust put Frank Sinatra's name on a marquee, not just because Sinatra sold tickets, but because Sinatra's presence told every working man in America that this was a place worth his paycheck. Steve Wynn understood it when he built the Mirage and the Bellagio, and put them in commercials alongside celebrities who made the dream feel attainable. And when Charles Barkley told the world he'd lost $30 million and kept going back, every casino host in Las Vegas quietly updated their prospect lists and made a few phone calls. Why does Charles still go? He has answered this question more times than any man should have to. The honest answer, the one underneath the grin and the deflection, is the one he gave most plainly when asked if he would ever fully stop. Probably not, he said. 2 words: no performance, no punchline. The truth from a man who built his public identity on telling the truth even when it was inconvenient, even when it cost him, even when it made people uncomfortable. That answer tells you everything about Las Vegas, that the neon and the fountains and the architecture are designed to hide. Vegas is not in the entertainment business. It is not in the hospitality business. It is in the capture business. It captures your money. It captures your time. It captures your habits and your impulses and your competitive nature and your need to feel alive. And once it has captured those things, it holds them with a grip so complete and so comfortable that the cage feels like a choice. Charles Barkley chose the cage. He chose it with his eyes open and his wallet extended over and over again for 20 years. He will likely keep choosing it, not because he is foolish. He is one of the least foolish people you will ever hear speak. But because the city found his frequency the first time he sat down at a table, and it has been broadcasting on that frequency ever since. Vegas did not break Charles Barkley. He is still standing, still talking, still the loudest and most honest voice in every room he enters. But it found every crack, the competitive ego that could not accept losing, the restlessness of a retired athlete with no more fourth quarters to play, the addictive personality that turned every game into the only game that mattered, the financial comfort that removed the natural governor most people carry, the fear of ruin that keeps ordinary gamblers from becoming catastrophic ones. So here is where we land. Charles Barkley earned in the range of $200 million over his career in basketball, endorsements, and broadcasting. He lost $30 million of it in casinos by his own admission, and the actual number may be higher. He has been publicly honest about the addiction, privately worked to manage it, and has never fully walked away from the tables. He grew up in Leeds, Alabama, with nothing. He built himself into one of the most recognizable athletes in American history. He stood up in front of millions of people and said things that were true and uncomfortable, and sometimes brilliant, and sometimes wrong, but always without apology. He turned honesty into his brand, his protection, and his identity. The city of Las Vegas took that honesty, that famous, brutal transparency, and handed him back a bill for $30 million. Benny Binion said the secret of his casino was simple: good food, cheap whiskey, and a good gamble. What he did not say, what no casino in the history of this city has ever said, is the corollary. Find the right man, learn what he needs, give it to him freely, and wait. The house always wins. Not because the house cheats, not because the odds are rigged, but because the house has something no player, no matter how wealthy, no matter how smart, no matter how honest, can ever match. The house has time. It opens every morning, it closes when the law requires, and it opens again the next morning. And it will be there long after Charles Barkley and every man who ever bet against it are gone. $30 million. Not stolen. Not lost. Handed over, one bet at a time, by the most honest man in basketball, which means he knew exactly what was happening, and he went back anyway. Tell me in the comments, do you think Charles Barkley ever really wanted to stop? Or was the table the one place where the game was always honest? I want to hear your answer. If you love discovering the real stories behind the neon, the men who built this city, and the city that built them back, hit subscribe. Because every legend has a story, and Vegas never forgets.